All right. Hello and welcome to another DevNation Tech Talk. I'm excited to be here with all you guys today. My name is Burr Sutter and I'm your host. And we're going to be running for the next 30 minutes or so with Alex Soto. He's going to be rocking along, talking to us about Quarkus and talking to us about testing. If you're interested in software testing, you're going to hear from the right guy today. He's our testing expert and a Quarkus expert, author of the Quarkus Cookbook, which you will see in a few months, as well as the Quarkus Cheat Sheet. So he's got a lot going on in his world. But right now, we want to turn it over to Alex and get going. But make sure you put your questions into chat. I'll be looking for them in real time. But Alex, go ahead and introduce yourself and let's see what you got.
Thank you very much, Burr. Let me share my screen. Okay, and I'm going to start to present. So, yes, today we've got a session about testing. I know that it's a topic that usually developers are really not interested because at the end you always prefer to develop than test, but test is an important thing. My name is Alex Soto. I work in Red Hat. As Burr said, I'm the author of Quarkus Cookbook and also the Testing Java Microservices book. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitter for being updated with all the stuff that we are doing nowadays in Red Hat. So why testing? Well, basically, we want to test because, well, you want to be sure that when you hit production, then your application is going to work as expected. So you want to validate or verify that your application is doing the right things and it's doing the things right. But what I really like about testing is that testing allows you to refactor. So it's not about verifying. It's not about verifying that your application works as expected, but it's more like making your application change over the time without worrying you if you have broken something or not. Let's say that verifying is just a side effect. So what is Quarkus? Well, probably most of you already know what is Quarkus, so I'm not here to explain you Quarkus at all. Just remember that Quarkus is the supersonic, subatomic Java framework that allows you to develop Kubernetes and serverless native Java applications. And if you want to learn more about Quarkus, just go to quarkus.io. And well, just a reminder, remember that now we've got this testing parameter where we have the unit test, which basically the 70% of the tests are in the unit part, but then there is component test, integration test, and end-to-end test. And in this talk, we're going to be focused on component and integration test. So let me show you the application that we're going to deploy. I've got here my my Quarkus application running already with here I deployed my application, and here I have Docker Compose, which I am started, the MariaDB as a persistent storage, and Kafka as an event sourcing as a way to store events. Okay, now one of the great things about Quarkus is that you can add a dependency, and then you've got this amazing Swagger UI interface where you can start testing your application or sending requests to your application. And in this case, this is let's say it's the process of doing a checkout of a shopping cart. In my shopping cart, I put in the address, which is Barcelona, Spain. My name, Alex, and the cart. In this case, it contains a book, which is The Hobbit, and the price is $100, euros, or whatever. And of course, you have a transaction ID. Then when I execute this, it just returns that here that this checkout has been created. It returns a 201 HTTP status code. And if you check here, Kafka cat, you can see that the event has reached the Kafka topic. So notice that I'm just saying that all this information has been, let's say, stored on this topic. So let's see how we can test this application. Let me stop all the Docker stuff just to avoid any kind of problems. And as I said, this is the application, which I got a /checkout. I've got the resource. The resource gets some information. Then this information goes to a discount service. This service is an external service, an HTTP or REST API, where you call it to know if what you are buying requires a discount or not. Then when you got the discount, you store this transaction, and also you send some kind of events to Kafka. So we need a way to test this part. We need to test this part. We need to test this part. And we need to test this part. As I said, we are doing component integration tests. We are not doing end-to-end tests at all. So let's go. If you are now wondering where are all these example, it's here. It's on GitHub, Lord of the Jars /Quarked test /3/test, which I mean that if you go to the master branch, you see the presentation without any test, and you go to /test, you see all the tests deployed there. So everything that I'm going to develop here, you can find it in this repo as well. So let's start. The first thing that you need to think about is that nowadays with Spring Boot or Quarkus and so on, it's really easy to create component tests. You just annotate your test, you boot up all your system with all all your classes, and then you start running the test against this running instance. But unit test still needs to be the 70% of the test, and you still need to use everything that you have been used in the past. For example, mocks or plain unit tests. In this case, we're going to start with the plain test. Let's say a test that we are going to use mockito. Then let's create a new test here. Let's call it, for example, discount service or price service test. Price service test. Oops. Test. Okay, this test, it's this one, which basically I'm just doing the REST call. Remember that discount price service sends a REST call to another service to ask if we should apply a discount or not. It just does, calculates the total, then do the request to check the discount, if it needs to apply a discount or not. Here it returns the percentage of the discount. Finally, you just return the total amount that you should, do the transaction or, or the billing and so on. So how we can test this? Well, notice that we've got this dependency, which is a REST call, and we need to mock because we are implementing a unit test. So it's really easy. We just go here and we can do private discount price service, and then let's write the test. Quarkus by default uses JUnit 5. Probably most of you have already migrated to JUnit 5. I think that still can work with JUnit 4, but you will not get all the, all the support, all the greenness things that happens with JUnit 5. So if you are developing a Quarkus project, I suggest you that use JUnit 5. Then you can go here, public void should not discount if no limit. For example, if you have not reached the limit of the to pay, then you have no discount. Then let's create a discount gateway. We need to create a discount gateway, which is the class responsible to do the REST call. But we don't want to do the real call. What we want to do is mock this. So to do that, I'm using, as I said, I'm using Mockito, which is, let's say, the de facto tool for mocking in Java. And here I just do this one. So I'm creating the mock, and then I do when discount is when? No, it's this. Yes. When discount gateway dot get discount in any string, so it doesn't matter what's going on, then return 0. So I'm returning that I don't want to apply any discount for any case. And then I need to inject this mock inside the discount price service, because if I run it discount price service dot calculate, it will return a null pointer exception. So I can do discount price service dot discount gateway equals discount gateway. And then one of the interesting things here is that I need to create a shopping basket object. If you see here, you see that I'm setting a shopping basket. So I need to create this object. And one way to do this that I really love is using the object model pattern. The object model pattern is just, a util class with some static methods, which generates all the hierarchy of objects required for testing. So now I can go here and do shopping basket object model dot the hobbit basket. So I'm just creating the shopping basket with the hobbit inside. And this is a shopping basket. Okay. Okay. Now I need to execute the discount and see that there is no discount at all. So I'm going to do discount price dot calculate and pass in this shopping basket, and this returns a double, which is the total. And I know that if you see here, I've said that this price of the hobbit is 15. So I know that I'm not applying any discount. So now I'm going to use assert j to write my assertion. I'm just saying assert that total equal to 15. And that's all. Now I can run the test. Okay, that's it. It's because I don't have the debugger installed. Okay, now it's failing. We pointed exception. Okay, because this is okay. Yeah. Okay, guard discount calculate shopping basket. Shopping basket is here. Discount gateway. Let me check which specific line it failed. It failed on line 18, which is here. Okay. Haha. Okay. Yeah, it will help if I instantiate the object. Okay. Okay. Now if I run it, yeah, it will work as expected. Notice that here I have this tick, which means that it has passed. Or you can see also the tick here. That's a really nice thing of Visual Studio Code. Okay, let's move forward and let's start doing some kind of component test using more of the Quarkus testing features. In this case, we're going to test the checkout process. Checkout process is the Java. Yes, it's a class. And if you see the checkout process, basically it has the price service. This is the discount price service that we have tested before. So it just, as you said, as you see it before, you saw that I'm just running the calculate against this REST client. The other thing is that I have this emitter. This emitter is a microprofile class. It's something that's provided by the Eclipse microprofile specification on Quarkus to send a message to Kafka. And you can see here how I'm using. I'm just delivering this message to Kafka. And finally, I'm receiving the shopping basket. And this shopping basket, I'm calling the method persist, which is something that comes with panache. If you see a shopping basket, see that extends from panache entity. This is an entity that comes from Quarkus that implements the active record pattern. And this means that your entity is responsible to be persist, to be searched, or whatever. Notice that, for example, I think that it's in the invoice, I've got this method, which is find invoice by transaction. And it's implementing this find method inside the entity itself. And of course, we want to write a test for that thing. So let's go moving. I'm not going to use mocking. So I want to use Quarkus test. Basically, Quarkus test is the notation which takes all your application, bundle your application inside the Quarkus, and start the Quarkus service, runs the test, all the tests, and then shut down the application or the service. Of course, also since as you've seen before, there is a database implied because I'm using invoice.persist. So I'm persisting a lot of data. So I need to make this test transactional. By default, tests are not transactional. Then this test runs inside Quarkus application, and this means that this test also belongs to a CDI context, which implies that I can inject here any bin that is in the CDI. In this case, I'm going to inject the checkout process. Checkout process is this class, which is the class under test, which, as you can see, I have the price service and the Kafka. Then, what else? Okay, I've injected this, and remember that I've said that here there is an emitter. Then, what's happening if I'm just using a component test? Probably I don't want to start a Kafka cluster for writing a component test. I want to use something like a in-memory Kafka, if you wish, okay? Like happens with databases that I'm using the real databases in the integration test, but I'm using the in-memory databases for component test. The good thing is that by default, if you do not configure anything, Quarkus creates an in-memory emitter. It means that it sends this even to memory without requiring that there is a Kafka behind or an AMQP or anything. It just sends in memory. So in memory, you can grab these messages as well. For this reason, I created this delivery stream. This delivery stream, it just waits for a message coming from the delivery topic. Notice that here, I'm just saying that I want to emit something in the delivery topic. And here, notice that it's in the test. I'm just creating, if you want to, I don't know, on a stop, right? That it just grabs information from the delivery topic. And all these things happens in memory. You will see that when I am running the test, that there is no Kafka running. Then, since I want to validate that things has been sent there, I can do an inject. And here is the delivery stream. This is the testing delivery stream. It's not the real Kafka one. We'll see in a few moments how to run with a real Kafka. And then again, the test, valid void should, let's call it should apply checkout. Then maybe some of you will say, okay, you've been talking about the checkout process. You said that I don't want to use a real database. Where are you configuring the memory database? Well, this is here. In the application, the properties, which is the standard configuration file, you've got something that is called profiles. Profiles is like, by default, I'm using MariaDB. You can see here. But in case that you are in a test, please override all these properties, which is the data source, URL, driver, username, password, and so on, with the H2 in-memory database. So this means that when I am executing tests, I'm using this in-memory database, but when I'm in production, I'm using this database. So you can see that with just adding these application properties here, I can switch from in-memory to the real database in test. So I do not need to do anything special. The second thing that you will wondering is, okay, but discount price requires a discount gateway, and this discount gateway goes through a REST API, an external REST API. And if this is a component test, I do not want to, interact with the external wall. And for this reason, I created here a stub discount price. Notice that it's a stub price. It's something that implements price service, as it happens here. Yes, this implements price service. I'm here just creating a mock service. Here is the annotation. This is a Quarkus annotation, which says, instead of using the price service that is on production, just use the price service implementation that is in the test package. For this reason, this test is not going to use internet at all. And then we can just go here, grab again this shopping basket. I want to put it here. And then I want to call the checkout process. Notice that I can call checkout process dot checkout, passing the checkout, and this is not going to throw a null pointer exception, although here you see that I'm not instantiating. The reason is that remember that this checkout process test is running inside the CDI context, and since checkout process is inside the CDI process, then it's injected here. And the same happens with the delivery stream. Then I can just start validating. For example, I can validate if that the invoice has been created. So I can do invoice dot find invoice by transaction, and then I need to set the transaction ID, which is a constant that is in the mother object pattern. And then here is the invoice. Notice that's really, really simple to do this kind of stuff, thanks of Quarkus, and because you implement all the queries inside the entity object. And finally, I can do assert that invoice dot get dot get invoice dot get ID. Okay, it's fine. Okay, get ID is not null. So I'm just checking that the invoice has inserted, and even I can do assert that delivery stream, this is my, let's say, in-memory Kafka. I mean, this is not a Kafka, right? It's just that the message is sent in memory and then it's received by this stream. But just so you can get it, the idea is any deliver is true. Okay, so I'm just checking that the invoice has been inserted and that the emitter has just emit the result without any mock. So I run the test again. And well, now it's starting. I mean that now it's deploying all the stuff. You can see it now it's failing. Why? Tell it to start. On to final. Okay, now I know what's happening. That I have a here. Okay, now I have a. I mean that since I didn't stop the previous version, I'm just using the port 9000 for the REST API for the discount. So I needed to stop the previous. And notice that now, yes, now it's green and it worked pretty well. Then what's happening if you want to run an integration test? You can also do it, and I've written one beforehand. And this is an integration test. This integration test, it starts a real MariaDB, starts a real Kafka, and then uses rest assured to check the checkout. So now I'm still using this shopping basket object model to get the content, but the big difference between the previous test and this one is that it's using all the real infrastructure. And notice that here I'm using this Quarkus test resource annotation, which basically it allows us to modify the life cycle of a Quarkus test. And in this case, I've created this infrastructure test resource. If you open infrastructure test resource, I'm using test containers, really cool project, probably most of you already know, for starting and stopping Docker containers from Java. And I'm just creating a MariaDB container, a Kafka container. I'm starting both of them. I am overriding the properties because now I want to use the URL that comes from the MariaDB container, the username from the MariaDB container, a password from the MariaDB container. And in case of Kafka, I want to configure to use the Kafka IP and port. And now, if I run this test, it's a really, it takes a bit of time because it's just, starting MariaDB, starting Kafka cluster with Zookeeper and so on, configures everything. Okay, now it does not work. Why? Another problem with the port. I don't know why. I tested just a moment ago. and it worked, and now not. Why? Driver, why it's happening? Oh yeah, I remember. Because there is a problem with Visual Studio Code. Well, actually, it's not a problem. It's a thing with the profiles. I need to run the test from here. Okay, now it's better. I'll explain you why. Because now, since it's a test, Quarkus tries to load all the configuration from the test profile. But what I want to do is override the testing profile saying, no, for this specific test, please don't use the test profile, but use the production profile. And to do that, you need to go to the pom.xml and say to Surefire, it's this pom, no, it's this pom, and tell to Surefire, please use for Quarkus the prod profile. And this is something that if you try to run from the IDE now, it's not supported yet. So I need to run it from the Maven. So basically what I'm saying here, I'm configuring here the test and Quarkus to run on prod profile and not the test profile. And if you see here, notice that now it's of course it's a success. You see that all the sequels that it's happening because of the inserts and so on. And if we scale up a bit more up, well, this is because there is, no, I think that they scaled too much up. Yeah, here. Now you can see here that it's starting the Kafka container and the MariaDB container, just starting both of the containers at the same time. And yeah, finally, as you can see at the bottom, the test is run perfectly and Kafka is receiving the emitter. So you can see that with an easy step, you can move from component test to integration test, run with Docker, with your real software without much hassle. So we are almost done. Remember, if you want to check the code, it's here in this repo. Some limitations, but we are working on them, maybe for version 1.4, maybe for version 1.5, I don't know yet. But the first thing that you need to take into consideration is that now, when you are creating an alternative, when you're creating a mock, this mock affects all the tests. You cannot select, I want this mock for this test and this other mock for this other test. But I know that there is a PR working for fixing this. Another is that you've seen that I'm using active repository pattern. This means that it's using entity manager, okay, and you cannot mock the entity manager yet. You cannot mock the entity because it's using static methods to work. But again, it's something that we are working now. So for now, if you want to write test, which uses the active repository pattern, then you need to use an in-memory database. There is no clear support for Mockito. I mean that you've seen that I'm using Mockito, but it's a plain unit test, JUnit test. But if you want to use with Quarkus test, then you might, get some kind of weird effects. And the last thing is that profiles. You've seen that now I need to set the profile in the Surefire, and this makes that the test is not runnable from the IDE. Then this is something that also we are working to be able to set the profile from the test itself, and then we will be able to run from the IDE. And that's all. Remember, if you want to learn more about Quarkus, quarkus.io, the source code, it's here, Lord of the Jar /Quarked test/tree/test. And if you want to see what's going on with the Red Hat developers, just go to developers.redhat.com/DevNation/upcoming, and you'll see not only DevNation talks, but also really interesting new master courses about Kubernetes, Istio, Knative, Tekton, or as Quarkus as well. Thank you very much.
We do have some questions for you.
Okay.
And that is, and one right off the bat is, how does this relate to Archillion, or can you compare and contrast with Archillion?
Yeah, the difference is, well, first thing is that there is some kind of work to be run also Quarkus with Archillion. And notice that the big difference is that with Archillion, you can choose if you want to run the test embedded in the, that you can start the application server and run the test inside the same JVM that is running the application server. Then you can, for example, do the managed lifecycle, which is like I'm starting a remote a remote web application or application server, and I'm just running the test against this or inside this. And in this case, the difference is that it's like an embedded mode. It's just start Quarkus application, run all the tests, and all the tests run inside this JVM, inside this CDI context, all together, and then it finishes. So let's say that with Archelian, it's different because you have more parameters to play, if you will, because you can deploy the test embedded inside the application server or outside the application server, or you can do micro deployments, just deploy a small part of your application here. But now by default, you are deploying all your service and you're starting everything embedded. So this is the big difference.
Okay. And if you could, go back to your test that you had for Kafka, because there was a very specific question on that one. And it was related to, are the producer and consumer and test running in the same thread, or how do we avoid concurrency problems?
In this case, it's in the component test, right? In the component test, it's in memory. It means it's in the same thread. So by default, if you are not configuring Kafka, what is happening is that when I'm doing, because I think it's quite interesting to show. Here, main job checkout process. When I'm doing this, since I've not configured any Kafka thing, then Quarkus sends, let's say, creates any memory pipe that it's sent, and then in the test you are receiving. So it's like a memory call in this case, right? There is no asynchronous. You can do it asynchronous if you want, but I think that by default it's not asynchronous; it's synchronous. So there is no race conditions.
Right. No threat, multi-threading, concurrency.
Yeah,
issues.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that was a number of the questions were related to that. And then there's a question related to the active repository pattern. Is it the active record pattern? Is active repository and active record the same?
Yeah, it's active record pattern. Yeah, but I've seen writing in both ways, and I usually set active record pattern, but for any reason when I write the data slide, it comes to my mind the other way of that I've seen how they call it. But yeah, it's true that it's active record pattern. And one of the, as I said, one of the things that happens and is that if you go to the definition, you see that there is a lot, not here, you will see that there is a lot of static methods. And then this makes it really hard to test in a mock way, because they're static, and Power Mockito does not work with JUnit 5. But as I said, now we are working on making Panache active record pattern testable with mocks.
Okay. Well, we are totally out of time. And one last question from David. He wants to know, does Quarkus work with C++ code? And the answer to that is no, unless it's J and I, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the standard way you would integrate C++ code with Java would still work in the case of the JVM mode. But by default, Quarkus is a Java-based solution.
Yeah. There is no, it's Java. It's, in this case, everything that I've shown, it's running in the JVM. So it's like Spring Boot or Wi-Fi application or something that it's running inside the JVM.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for your time today. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a great session with Alex. Alex, thank you so much for that. I did post some links to the presentation, to his GitHub repo in the chat. Also, a couple links to our new website that we have for these DevNation Tech Talks, as well as the new DevNation Master Courses that Alex mentioned there. And that's for people who want to get kind of their feet wet, if you will, in things like Kubernetes, Istio, Knative, some of those more core topics. We're actually going to be live teaching those through this live YouTube mechanism. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're out of here.